Hello, and welcome to my second video about the cities of the world of Garth. In this video, I will give you some ideas that I use to make each city unique in and of itself, to give you players something to remember. Now, I will admit, this idea works better when dealing with a smaller area, maybe a nation inside of a continent, or a smaller landmass, much like my world is, than, say, all of something the size of Europe or even the world that we live in. But I would like to give you what I do to make each city in and of itself unique. And in no special order, I will go over the different cities in my world and why each one stands out in and of itself. We'll start with Dillon, the Dwarven City. Now, 1, it is a Dwarven city. 2, it is carved into the side of the mountain, and it is high up in the mountain, where the main gate is a waterfall that runs out and drops down the side, and a path must be treacherously climbed up the side. Maybe not so treacherous because there is trading, but still a path that snakes up the side of the mountain. It is the only city in my world completely carved in and made out of a mountain. We have the walled city of Kar. Now, granted, this is not the only walled city in my world, but it is a small city, almost a village that is walled in. It is closed off to the rest of the world, except for 1 week out of the year, in which the gates are thrown open and people are allowed to come in and visit, and a huge celebration takes place. So the idea that you can't even get into this city on a regular basis is what makes this city different. I have Rosetta, the holy city. I've based this city off of the real world city of Machu Picchu. And I like that idea because when I play for my group, I try to use photos of real world places to show my players, to give them a rough idea. Artwork is amazing. Artwork is fantastic. There is stuff you can do in artwork that cannot be done in the real world. But if you could show a picture of the real world that represents something in your world, it gives it, I don't know, in my personal opinion, just that much more of a special spot. That much more realism. We have Gray, which I spoke about in the previous video, which was a city at the base of some mountain cliffs, and then during the Great Destruction, the mountain cliffs fell in upon themselves, forming a domed mountain over the city. The city, sure, took a little bit of damage. For the most part, it's left untouched, but it is a city inside of a mountain. You must go in through the end of the opening at the bottom of the mountain, which is where the ocean goes into, which was the original cove. Very unique idea for my world. You have Royal, which is your typical large capital castle, city ports, river cutting through the middle of it, with the city on each side, which dates back to when it was 2 separate cities, which merged into the Royal city. We have Dawn, just a small farming village up in the mountains, but there's some unique stuff about Dawn. Like, there is a museum opened by a retired adventurer. There's mining there. There's also mining in the Dwarven city, of course. Just some small little touches. We have Tekot, this city of the bird folk, made out of the stones on the floating isles, which were parts of the third moon, which were destroyed and now float above sea level. Almost like the cities into the side of cliffs. Both caves and naturally, I shouldn't say, excuse me, not naturally formed, but man-made, bird folk made, if you will. Cities that represent more of what humans are used to, while many of the bird folk still live in the rough caves in the mountainside. Plogop, the underwater city of the merfolk. Think of any city sunken underwater, covered with algae and lime, and populated with nothing but merfolk, unique in of itself. Grung, the half-orc outpost. I think of this as a shanty town, something that was thrown together by the outcasts. Dirty, muddy, very basic shops and skilled labor. Malvak. Now, many people will think of Ravenloft and the cities there trapped within the fog. But to me, it dates back to an old horror movie. I wish I could remember the name of it, from the 70s. It was 3 small stories in one. And the third story was about people who got trapped in a fog, and they got trapped into this town, where the inhabitants were ghouls, and they had to escape, but they couldn't get out through the fog. Now, I don't know if this is where they got the idea to do Ravenloft, but I always liked that, and that story always stuck in my mind. The old Castle Amber X2 from the original Expert series. Those cursed areas that you get into and you can't quite get out of. I always liked them, and both of those things that influenced me date back before Ravenloft. So it's been an idea that's been in my head long before Ravenloft, but along the same lines. You know, Drizzlewood is a very small, tiny farming village. Actually, nothing special about this, except I start almost every campaign in my home brewed game out of here, so it has a soft spot to me, and it's probably my most detailed city as far as the residents go, because I have spent so much time working on it. Oxtal, the Elvish city. Always liked the idea of the Ewok village, or if you will, the little Care Bear episode from the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, as it's become to be known. I liked the idea of buildings in cities and passages and bridges connecting through the trees. But I also felt that it was un-elven to build that onto nature. So over the years, with their special elven magic, they blended it into nature, building the homes out of the trees. Just a small little touch, but again, the only treetop city in the world. And many pictures, both real world and artwork, can be found for this to give that idea. Scion, a small village. You can look at Native American villages, or personally, I always envisioned the MacLeod Clan's village from the Highlander television show, or Highlander movie, if you will. I always envisioned that when I saw this. Narhost, Halfling Village. Just picture the Shire from Lord of the Rings. Most people have probably seen Lord of the Rings. You can throw that out there. You can actually find pictures from where they filmed this in New Zealand and show actual photos. Very easily relatable with players. Nikojima. This is actually based... The idea of this is actually based on real cities in Japan, which were, for the most part, abandoned. There might still be 30, 40 people living there, but were overrun by stray cats. Nikojima has become the city of cats in Japan. And this is a relatively newer city added to my world when my son and his brother and sister all wanted to play. They wanted to play Khajiit, so I made a Tabaxi city. But I like the idea that Tabaxis, as a race, they're cats. kind of lazy. They sun and sleep all day. So they just found an abandoned city, village, if you will, and took it over. They didn't really improve it. There's no shops there. There's no inn to stay at. They just live there. They're like squatters, but a whole bunch of cats. Again, an original idea for my world. New Magica, one of my favorite cities. The original city of Magica was destroyed by an evil necromancer, which created the Red Desert. So the rest of the world got mad at wizards for this power, so they decided to build magical towers built out of the sea. So I took the idea of Venice, where there's streets of water, and you travel by boats from building to building, and made towers. Sandpoint, more or less Arabian Nights, that style city, which is set into the Red Desert. I liked the idea of taking stuff from different cultures. Being from America and not being to these other countries, I'm not completely familiar with these other cultures. But neither are most of my players. So you can go with the stuff you see in movies or read in books or television shows to get the point across. But the cultural switch is just enough that it gives a unique feel to your city. Sapporo, my Oriental city, this dates back to my first campaign I ran here back in 89-90 when I owned the original Oriental Adventures handbook for first edition. And none of my players in my group had it or had heard of it or owned it. I'm sure might have heard of it. So I was able to move the group in the campaign into the Oriental city, which was absolutely amazing. It's very easy to find Asian artwork, architecture, China, Korea, Japan. Tons of different cultures to draw upon, tons of different artwork, tons of different legends. When my group first encountered Sapporo, they encountered hopping vampires from the Japanese legends. Group had no idea what a hopping vampire was. Goblins, first edition, could be multiple different colors. In the Orient, they were yellow. Players rolled really bad. As a DM, my goblins rolled really good. They thought they were the most incredibly dangerous creatures ever, not realizing they were base goblins. Don't be afraid to switch little things if you want to give a cultural flavor or even a different cultural flavor. It might look like a goblin, but it's a different color. It's shorter. It's taller. Its teeth are flat and not sharp. Change them up a little bit. Represent the different cultures and their effects on the world. Dragontown, City of Thieves. Though this is completely based on Lankmar, the City of Thieves. Fritz Leiber, amazing stories. I recommend anybody to go out and read them. It's been probably 25 years. I believe there's 6 books in the series. There might have been a 7th. Son might have written or finished. Fafhrd and the Grey Mouse are your main characters. Amazing stories. The term sword and sorcery was coined because of this author. I cannot say enough about this. Read the books if you enjoy reading. It'll give even more flavor to a city. The City of Thieves, Lankmar. Great idea. And last but not least is Pirate Cove. Now, I like the idea for the Pirates of the Caribbean of the idea that the city was just a bunch of old ships that were kind of crashed together and stuff. So that's basically what I made Pirate Cove. A little bit of Tortuga, a little bit of pirate ships just ruined together to make a hidden base. As you can see, a lot of my ideas I have taken from books, movies, TV shows, and by all means do the same for your game. I just suggest putting something unique about each city so that your players can remember it. Maybe they won't remember the names, but they'll remember that village they went to that was populated by nothing but tabaxi, being lazy and sleeping and begging for food and pickpocketing them. Or they'll remember that city that was under the collapsed mountain. Um, but that's the best piece of advice I could give someone. Give something unique to each city, be it the overall style, or maybe there's a city that has the largest library in the world. Maybe there's a city with a giant burning pit that goes down into the plains of hell. Put something unique in each city to give your players something to remember. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and share if you did. As always, feel free to comment below. And have a great day. Thank you again.